Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to my Q&A. Plenty of questions, so thanks for everyone who put one in. It's a good start to the Q&A for 2018. So I'll jump straight into it because, as I said, there's quite a few to get through. We'll start off with pouring jars. What's your take on Zach Merritt? Hold, sideways or downgrade in terms of a trade? And is Tim English worth getting for cash generation or stick with the loophole donut? Firstly, on Zach Merritt, I believe he's been named, so yeah, certainly keep. I mean, you hope that there's no sort of ongoing effects in terms of that knock to his head. You'd like to think that he is playing 100% fit, but yeah, I definitely would hold him. Since he's been named, there's no reason to trade him. Definitely keep him. He's an absolute premium when he's up and going. In terms of English, look, he looked impressive, but I certainly wouldn't be looking to get him in. I know he's relatively cheap and he looked all right, but I don't know. Wait and see. Wait and see what he does in round two. I mean, at the moment, I certainly wouldn't be rushing to get him in because I personally think it can be quite handy to have that loophole. And if you're going to sacrifice the loophole, you want to be sold on the bloke's job security and that he's not just going to dish out 50s and not really make you much coin. So I'd wait and see just to see how he goes in round two. So thanks for your question there. GJ's SuperCoach 101. Thanks, mate. If Fife is injured, my considerations would be Cornelio, Akers or Oliver. Would you consider any of these? Also, if Sicily has another peach of a game, would you trade him in and for who? Yeah, well, by the looks of it, Fife is all right. No reports of him missing the game. He seems to be, well, he's named and he should be fine, good to go. So that's really reassuring for us. But if you were to be getting rid of him for whatever reason, if you had any sort of concerns of those guys, I would certainly consider Cornelio and Oliver. I think the jury's out on Akers. A very good game. He served my draft side extremely well, but I definitely wouldn't be trading him in when you're getting rid of Fife. I would consider Cornelio, but my pick of those would be Oliver. I think he's definitely the biggest premium of the lot. And in terms of Sicily, well, yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking the same thing, mate. I think if he has another pearler of a game, well, I'm going to have to look at definitely ditching Salem. I mean, at this point in time, it's Thursday night, I'm still pondering it. I think I'm going to stick with Salem. Slight niggle last week with that awkward land on his head, but, you know, I would like to give it 2 rounds, so I think I will do that. But yeah, look, definitely, if he has another one that's really impressive, he's in an extremely SuperCoach friendly role. It'd be very hard to say no to him. Next up, we've got Jack Dawson. Thank you, mate. Should I give Lambert another week or trade? Well, look, I think if you've started with him, you've got to give him 2 weeks. I mean, we can't be spending that amount of coin on a bloke that we've done our research on pre-season. We've gone with him as a premium. You've got to give him at least 2 weeks. So I'm sure this one probably doesn't help you because he plays tonight. So apologies that I didn't get round to it any sooner. But the Thursday game does make it a little bit tricky. We really need to have the teams on offer. But look, I would be holding with him. I hope by the time you listen to this that you've done that. And hopefully for your sake he comes out and goes all right. Warwick Murray, I got 2,349, just outside the top 5,000, and didn't pick really any good rookies. And Fife was average. Thank you, mate. Thanks for the question. Well, yeah, you're doing all right there, mate. I mean, obviously it can be a bit of luck whether you get the good rookies on the field. Hopefully by the time the prices start to change, you've brought in a couple of the must-have rookies, mate. That's going to be crucial. But yeah, very nice score first up, and it's good to be placed around that top 5,000 mark early in the season. Certainly plenty of time to work your way up the ladder there. Judder Net. Don't really know how to say that, mate. You might want to correct me there phonetically. But look, can you go through your team a little bit more? Yeah, definitely can, mate. And his next comment's just a great video. So thanks for the comment, mate. I appreciate it. But yeah, definitely next press conference, I certainly will go through it a bit more. I must say I was a little bit pressed for time. Obviously, yeah, had work real late that Sunday night, got round to it the Monday, had a couple of things on. So I just sort of battled it out for 6 or 7 minutes. And I must say I got to the end of it like, oh, geez, that was a pretty short one in terms of my press conferences. I might have to go a bit deeper. But yeah, definitely, mate. I'll definitely go through my team a bit more thorough next time, particularly when we've got a couple of weeks, a bit more of a sample size, and there'll certainly be a bit more to talk about when we're really getting into the season and prices are about to change and that. So yeah, definitely I'll talk about it a bit more on Sunday night, mate. Galacho 9, do I trade the Bont, Norton, Dalhouse and Tom Bell? Definitely trading Tom Bell because he just got dropped. So, absolutely. I thought that was a bit stiff, to be honest. I thought really good JLT form. I would have thought maybe one extra game, but, you know, they watch him much closer than me. And Dalhouse, well, he went okay, didn't he? I can't remember what he got, but I know he found a reasonable amount of the ball. I'd be keeping him. I mean, you've clearly picked him as a premium, so I think we've got to give him 2 weeks, as I just mentioned with Lambert. Same goes with Bont. I've got Bont, and yeah, absolutely, he's on watch. There's no doubt about it. If he doesn't fire, then absolutely, he's going to have to be traded, I think, because I know in my circumstance, I can potentially get Tom Mitchell, so there's no point waiting around for a premium to fire, particularly when the prices haven't changed and we know what's going on. If there's a guy who's sideways or just above him who's going great, then there's no point in being patient. So, yeah, definitely give him this week, but then make a call. And Norton, well, he's been named and seems to have really good job security, so I'd definitely be patient with him. Yeah, he didn't score well, but he might score well this week. You just don't know. I mean, the Giants smashed the Dogs. The back line was under an extreme amount of heat. The ball was coming in with minimal pressure for much of that game. So he does read the play really well. He's a talented man. I would back him in for a score of 80-odd this week. I think more often than not, we'll see him around the 70 or 80 mark. So I think certainly a 25 is something we'll look back on as a bit of an aberration. So I definitely, keep the faith with him. And now that I look at it, keep faith with all the Bulldogs and trade Tom Bell would be my advice. Gruffy, Shorty, you're talking in third person, mate. Get rid of all the mirrors in your digs. Look, mate, I make no apologies. Shorty likes to talk in third person. Sebastian Franco scored 2,236 last week. Not bad considering I held Dangerfield and had Zach Merritt on the field. Unfortunately, fielding the wrong rookies. Had Kelly on the bench as well as Finlayson. As you said, bit of a toss of the coin. Yeah, I know it is, isn't it, mate? I mean, there's no science to picking a rookie, which one to field. That's sometimes one of the toughest elements in these early rounds because we know which premiums and, you know, often we can nail the premiums, but then you pick a rookie who scored 20 and your bloke who scored 80 is on the bench. You know, it's frustrating, but you still scored solid points, particularly with the Zach Merritt one. And you're right, Dangerfield coming back. So thanks for the question, mate. One of the real long-time listeners. So thanks for that, Seb. Talk too much. Norton out, question mark. I'm presuming that's a question of trading him out rather than his selection because he's certainly been named. But, nah, hold faith, mate. I mean, there's no point ditching him after that. I mean, I think if he were to go poorly in round 2, then look, maybe you would. As I said before, the Giants really dominated that game and it was tough for a Bulldogs defender, particularly an interceptor. You know, really to intercept, you need the midfield putting on pressure so you can get some high balls and some loose balls. And look, he didn't get many looks at that. So I think definitely hold him. Perhaps if he were to go poorly and Cam O'Shea plays a good one, then all of a sudden that's a likely sideways trade. So that's potentially something we could do. Again, from Talk Too Much, Dougal Howard, thoughts? Thanks for a couple of questions, mate. Nah, don't think so. What is he, about 280k? I know he scored well, but he's more of a defensive-minded player. I think he had 22 spoils or something like that. He might get thrown in the ruck without Ryder potentially, but no, I wouldn't be rushing to go for him, particularly with a teammate, Riley Bonner, about 25k less. You'd certainly be looking at him before you were looking at Howard. Fraser Hunt, how you going, mate? What round would it be ideal to bring Dangerfield in? He also asks, or what is an acceptable price to pick him up at? Well, yeah, that's a good question, and it is a tough one to pick in terms of rounds. I mean, ideally, we could get him in round 5 or 6 when he has a sluggish first 4 to 5 rounds or what have you, and he drops to 600 or something like that. I mean, that would be ideal. But look, I think, what is he, 749 right now? I think if he could drop anywhere between 100k to 150k, that would be perfect. But I do think it'll all depend how your team rolls out and when you can latch onto him. Ideally, we get him when he really bottoms out. Hopefully, in a perfect world, he might average 110 for the first month, and that will bring him down in price. And you'll see, keep an eye on his break-evens when that sort of gets to your low 100 mark, because a lot of his break-evens early on will be around the 160, 170, 180. 150 depending how he scores, but he can't maintain that price. It's just a question of how quickly he drops and whether there's a consistent dropping or whether it's a bit of a drop, then he's bang back up to the 170. So it's a horses for courses, but I think between round 6 and 8 is when you really might have that window. So keep an eye out for then. Who else we got here? Archie Prime. Should I drop Bont and Mirror / Norton for Bonner and someone like a Sicily if Bont doesn't perform on the weekend? Excuse me, mate. Yeah, it's a fair question, and I wouldn't lose trust with Bontempelli just yet. He's a star. I expect him to bounce back. So hold faith. Obviously, if he stinks it up a little bit again, then yeah, we've probably got to get a little bit concerned when there's other premiums around that price scoring well. In terms of the initial question, I don't think you should drop Bont. Definitely not. And as I mentioned with Norton, I think we should give them an extra week. The dogs had a bad day. Give them another week, see how they go. I really think that we should be, holding fire and just seeing how they go. As far as David Mirror goes, I would probably sideways him to maybe Lockie Murphy or another defender that you can go up 20k and get a Sam Murray or whoever's up there, because I think to have a guy not playing, not scoring, not making a coin on your bench, I know he's probably going to get an opportunity at some point, but of all those questions that you asked there and all the players you named, I should say, he would be the man. David Mirror, get a bloke who's scoring, playing, making you money. And it's a wait and see on Bontempelli, in my opinion, and Norton for that matter as well. Moving on. Don't even know how to say that. We'll just roll with the first word. Gizem, how you going, mate? Has Lewis and Lever's role in the back line, obviously talking about Melbourne, affected Hibbard's scoring? 74 is a low for a top price defender. Thoughts, Shorty? Yeah, good question, mate. I wouldn't be super concerned with Hibbard. I think he was playing a fairly similar role from what I could tell. Still plenty of handball received. Still get to be involved in the play a fair bit. Maybe a slight change in role, perhaps. Maybe Lewis conducts a little bit more of the ball. Maybe that wiser head out of the back line. He's a good ball user. Maybe they shared it a little bit. It's hard to say off one round. Watching it, while I didn't absolutely watch the whole game, it didn't look to me like there was a massive role change. Just maybe not his best day of all time, Hibbard. I think he had a couple of holding the balls maybe, or a clanger that he might not normally do, and sometimes that can happen. 74 is not a howler. You'll certainly want a response this week, but stay in there, mate. I wouldn't be trading him just yet. Just hold the faith. John O'Carroll, what should we do with Ryder? I can't afford anyone apart from Cruiser. Oh, I can afford anyone apart from Cruiser. Right, I'm with you there. Yeah, I see, mate. Yeah, definitely. I think I said it earlier, I believe. Stephen Martin, Toby Nankervis. Obviously, you can't get Nankervis because he's playing tonight. Apologies, I didn't get the video up earlier. But my recommendation would definitely be Martin. He's in my team, and look, the proof's in the pudding. I think he's a great player. He scored well week 1. Solo ruck, I'd be getting him in. I think Brodie Grundy's a likely type. You've probably heard my thoughts on Nick Nat earlier in the video. I'll certainly talk about him later in the video because he does get mentioned a little bit. But yeah, Martin would be my selection. Kelly Nagrom, solid start for the Superstars. Thank you, Kelly. I finished with 2,388, including a Dangerfield donut, so looking forward to captaining him on Easter Monday. Absolutely, I hope he tears it apart. The main difference between our sides was that I nailed the rookies with Doty and Fritz. The Sis dog was always likely to start well against the Pies, so I made sure he was in on my sides. He will be a rollercoaster ride, so maybe see how he goes against your Cats before bringing him in. Bonner is a nice selection, which plenty will be jumping on now that they've seen him, seen the light. Yeah, absolutely. And continuing on, the Bont burnt me last season, so no way was I going back to that well. Bevo wrecks him as a fantasy selection, playing him too much forward in the Dogs' whole game scheme is a bit of a mess these past 12 months. Maybe Liver down will force him to play the Bont more inside mid. Yeah, let's hope so. Either way, the Dogs did have a shocker against the Juggernaut Giants, so we should hopefully be much better at the Dome against the Eagles this week. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Kelly, and the amusing hyperlink as well. But yeah, a solid contributor, often commenting, so much appreciated. And yeah, clearly a really nice score from you there. Did pretty well, particularly holding Dangerfield's a pretty bold move, but look, you've gotten away with it for the first week, and that's all you asked for. So I think that'll pay dividends in the long run, particularly with a nice round 1 score. So nicely done, and thanks for the comment. Roy Hewson, I scored 2,296 with Holman and Kelly on the bench instead of Brayshaw and Banfield, which I'm pretty happy about. Who do you think are the best two to start next week out of Brayshaw, Kelly, Holman and Banfield? Yeah, well, I reckon definitely continuing on from last week, and that's the only reference point we have, really. I mean, Kelly's an absolute lock. Holman seems to be, he's an experienced body. He's a, mature age guy. I think he's a safer bet. I think he's a better chance to be more consistent in his scoring, where maybe a Brayshaw and Banfield potentially could dish out more 40s to 60s. So, yeah, I'd be absolutely locking in Kelly because he's a smooth mover. The Cats are loving what he's doing. He just looks ready for the level. So I'd definitely be starting him. I would start Holman just for safety purposes, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Brayshaw have a really good game. I think, it was a tough initiation over in Adelaide there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him show exactly why he was selected so high. So I would be going Holman and Kelly, but certainly Brayshaw I expect to have a much better game. Who we got here? Spaceman. Nice start, mate. Unlucky with the Bont. I have a feeling he's going to be a lot like Dusty in the sense we know he's going to be an elite scorer for us, but he's going to take his time to break out into the elite bracket. Yeah, that could well be true. I was hoping that the elite bracket would be 2018. Maybe we'll have to wait and see how he goes this weekend. Very happy with how I started. Scored 2,307 and ranked 10,400. Laird, Sicily, Dusty, Tommy Mitchell, Gawn, Green and Billings all going 120 plus. That's what you want, isn't it, mate? That's good stuff. My only concern is Cruiser. Hopefully he's all right. If not, I'll be looking at either Steph, Goldie or Nick Nat. Excuse me again. But yeah, definitely, mate. Well done there. That's a really good score. And it always helps when your premiums not only play well, but go 120 plus. Because when they can get right up there, well, all of a sudden it really makes up for those 60s and 70s that sometimes we just have to cop with the rookies. But that's a really nice start from you. Some really good scorers. You'll be happy about Cruiser being named. And I like your preferences there. I think, certainly Stephen Martin, as I mentioned earlier, would be a guy that I strongly consider. So nicely done there, mate. As I throw that page away and move on to the fourth. Medrayo, however you want to go about pronouncing that one. I really should proofread these names. 2,350. Should I sub on Tim Kelly for the Bont? Absolutely not. Hold faith with Bontempelli. I would imagine you aren't batting that deep through the midfield that Tim Kelly can quite easily slot onto your bench. I would imagine maybe he was on your bench just by the way it fell in week 1, but certainly I presume you've got some other rookies fielding in the midfield. Sub Tim Kelly on for one of those would be my opinion. Thanks for the question, mate. Alistair McNeil, thanks for the question. 2,282, pretty handy score, pipping me by 1. Should I go Hibbard, scores of 74 points, to Sicily, or Hibbard to Bonner and Brayshaw to Cornelio? No, I wouldn't be too concerned about doing any of that just yet. See how they all go. Bonner, as much as he dominated that first week, let's just wait and see how he goes, because I wouldn't be going crazy and Hibbard down to Bonner. It's just off 1 week. Let's not be too knee-jerk reaction about it. So definitely be patient, hold on. I like the Cornelio option. I think he's a guy that we might want to be bringing in, absolutely. But I think sometimes we've got to stick with our convictions. Clearly it'd be great to have Sicily, Bonner and Cornelio, all the guys you've mentioned, of course. But you've clearly made the choice to go Hibbard a premium and have Brayshaw as the lower priced rookie. And that's fair enough. You might have to throw your structure around a little bit to make those work. I think Sicily's a guy you should look to work in your team. I'm not sure Hibbard should be the man to be sacked, but see how he goes. Again, Bonner, I like that option. I think he's a good player. But for all those guys, I'd just wait and see how they go in round 2. I don't think we need to be too trigger happy just yet. So see how they go. But of all those guys you mentioned, I definitely think they are all good guys to look at bringing in. But just wait and see what round 2 brings. Because sometimes we're thinking one thing on the Thursday, Monday rolls around and it's all changed on its head. So you don't want to regret a trigger-happy trade. Tom Marnie, Nick Nat scored over 100 with 50% time on ground. Just wondering if not having him will cost more than having the extra trade to not bring him in. No, as I've mentioned, I would like to see Nick Nat do it one more week at least. And even then, I'd be very hesitant. I mean, most people, the only reason I would endorse it if you have Ryder and you desperately need to open up some coin, even then I'd rather see a second week of good footy from Nick Nat. I mean, personally, I've got Gawn and Martin, and a lot of people will have Gawn and Nank, Gawn and Cruiser. You're not going to drop a premium for a guy who's a risky premium. So maybe if you're desperately needing to get someone in or get some coin, I can see why. But I understand the old philosophy with, I don't want to burn a trade, but it might burn me more by missing out on those points. But this is a long-term injury. This is a guy who hasn't played footy for a long time. Let's judge him over 3 to 4 to 5 weeks, not just 1 week, because the toll on the body and the cumulative effect of how that really affects him, that'll be where we really see if he's a good selection or not. Ben Leonard, I had 2,167 with Dow, Brayshaw and Barry starting. That is brutal. And I had Kelly and Holman on the bench, and I also Cruiser with English on my bench. I'm absolutely gutted. Yeah, that's tough, mate. I mean, you've done nothing wrong there. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with those moves aside from I definitely would have started Kelly on the field. But other than that, they're toss of the coin things. And who can predict an injury from Cruiser? That could happen at any point. It might not happen at any point. So that's unlucky, mate. But keep cracking in, mate. I mean, you can't beat yourself up about a couple of things like that. It is absolutely unlucky. I had a bit of a taste of it as well in that back line, and sometimes you're going to get lucky. You're going to get the right rookies and they perform in the week and you go injury-free. But, look, I reckon you'll be in for a good score because still getting 2160, you've obviously got a sound structure and good enough players in there. You're not too far behind the pack. And Georgia's 2,435. He's just gone bang. Nicely done, mate. Maybe next week get Sicily for Howe. Thinking about and possibly getting Wingard. Yeah, fair enough, mate. I mean, I think, Howe isn't a guy I really considered too much. And Sicily looks like he's on fire, so I could understand that. But again, as I've said with a lot of players, you've paid a bit of coin for Howe, so he probably warrants a little bit of patience, at least 2 weeks. And Wingard, big fan of him. You would have seen me talk about him a few times already, so big fan, no doubt about that. Reece Brenton asks, Riley Bonner, once off or the start of a trend? I wouldn't think it's a once off. I mean, I wouldn't be thinking he's going to average 100, so I think it probably falls somewhere in the middle, but I would say certainly more like a trend. I think he plays a really nice role in terms of scoring points. He's got some real pace. He's got a nice step. He's a good ball user. He's got all those qualities that once given the opportunity can turn into some really good points, and that's what we saw. Whether he gets a little bit more attention and how he handles that at certain stages, we'll wait and see. But I think if he's left to roam, he's pretty much a lock for an 85-90 average, potentially somewhere in the 90s the way he's going. The thing is, Pittard will come back, Broadbent might come back. That's going to affect him. I think he'll still score really well, but clearly Pittard will be the primary exit out of the back line. The hope for SuperCoaches is that Pittard gets delayed a bit, maybe has to play a sample game, maybe isn't cherry ripe until round 8 or 9 or something like that, and we get some really good points from Bonner. Maybe we trade him out just before they go to China. I would imagine that would be the plan, and all of a sudden you'd imagine that would be the likely thing to do. Get him out before they have that bye where we don't get any coverage or any safety nets in terms of players, and that would be the obvious bet to get 8 or 9 weeks. I think they go to China in round 9, I think. And then he would have, at this rate, really beefed up to 420 plus or something like that. So I think it's looking good. To answer your question, I think it's much closer to a trend. I think he'll average really nicely. Tough to tell how he will be impacted once a few of those rebounders of Port return from injury. So we'll probably wait and see. But for the moment, he's looking really good. Andrew Devonport asks, cop the cheeky 24.90. Fantastic, mate. That's a very handy score. That'd put you right up there, I'd imagine. Kelly on the bench, sadly, and had Norton on the field. Jeez. You must have had a fair bit go right for you if you had a couple of those. Rookie decisions not go your way. Nicely done, mate. Well played. What are your thoughts, Shorty? I know it's just round 1, but I need to get Norton off the field. This is surely against every rule in SuperCoach. I'm currently running 6 premiums and Cornelio and only one rookie in the midfield. I feel Holman and Kelly will be consistent performers. I know this sounds like madness, but considering downgrading Fife, in brackets, I see him as the lowest averaging of my primos, swinging Garlett onto my mids bench, then I would have cash to upgrade a back rookie to Bonner and also any primo I want in the forward line. I must say that's the first time I have read that. I don't proofread absolutely every question, but let me just take a look at it. If you downgrade a Fife, yeah, look, you're right, it probably is breaking most SuperCoach rules. I wouldn't endorse trading out Fife. I mean, that unbelievable preseason he had. I know what you're trying to do there. I mean, what are your options with Norton? I mean, I think if you're concerned about Norton, I'd be just sideways trading him to O'Shea. I think that, I mean, there's no guarantee O'Shea will fix your problems. He hasn't even played a game yet, but I would imagine he will slot into that Carlton lineup. I'm not sure why he missed round 1, but I would be more inclined to take that risk than downgrading Fife, who, okay, it was a tough day in Port Adelaide. They smashed him. He seemed to cop a little bit of a niggle after he kicked a goal. Tough season opener. Prior to that, he was, you had to pick him. He was in amazing form compared to his Brownlow year. So I'm pretty confident he's going to be very, very good this season. And I understand the temptation to, those midfield rookies are always going to score better than some of our defensive rookies. But, I mean, you must have a Sam Murray back there or a Dode. You must have a couple of guys back there, I'm sure, aside to cover Norton. But if you don't, I would encourage O'Shea coming in for Norton if you had to. Because I can't guarantee he's going to be a better scorer. But I think he'll be far more consistent just in his role, his experience, and his side. And I just wouldn't be comfortable trading out Fife. So that's where I stand with that one. I understand where you're going, but certainly at this early stage, I don't think we have to be so brash in our trading just yet, because that would be extremely risky in just round 2. So I'd play it a little more conservative, and even if O'Shea were to go wrong, it's not catastrophic. So where I feel the other one, it's pretty ballsy. So anyway, hopefully that helps, mate. And one from Hayden Luleen. I got stuffed by Merritt, scored 22.49 with him getting 17. Well, look, mate, it was tough for many people, and a lot of people. I've just filmed this second part of the podcast after the Adelaide-Richmond game, and a lot of people would have been buggered around with Matty Crouch, 47 points or whatever it was. He was in similar amount of sides to Merritt, and dare I say there would have been a lot of people who went Merritt to Crouch if you did pull that trigger. Obviously, Merritt was named, but some people still slightly concerned. But look, that would have hurt a few people. But, mate, we'll cop them all throughout the season. There will be times where we ride that luck different ways, but on this occasion, it certainly kicked you in the arse. But hopefully you get a bit more of a benefit later in the season. But moving on to Quinn Sullivan, Tim Kelly or Andrew Brayshaw? It's definitely Tim Kelly, mature age player, slotted in nicely to that Geelong lineup. I know Dangerfield's coming back. Of course, Kelly will play less midfield time now. He scored, 118 round 1. I wouldn't be expecting that. He's not going to come out and average 100. But even with Dangerfield and the big 3 all in there, I think he's a solid 85 to 90 average from what he's shown. He's a smooth mover, good ball user. He's what Geelong needs. Don't worry about his job security just because he's at the Cats. He's very secure in that side. Brayshaw, big fan. But I think Kelly's certainly shown he's the one. Carlos, thanks for the question, mate. Shorty, weighing up who to bring in for Ryder. Nick Nat leads the charge, 113 from 60% game time. Is amazing. Surely, as his fitness improves and time on ground does also, that will counteract his scores dropping against a better ruckman than what Sydney dished up. Sorry, mate, I was just struggling to read the actual question. But yeah, no, that's understandable. Other options include Cruiser if he's fit, Wits, in brackets, although not sure he can maintain average above 95 despite his score on the weekend. Steph probably second in line. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, as I've alluded to already in this video, I'm a big Steph Martin fan, big Nankervis fan. It was very good tonight. Obviously, that's little help to you right now. I'd be extremely wary with Nick Nat. I know if we want to look at it positively, he started well. Surely it's only up from here as he plays more time. I look at it more as, yes, that could happen, but just as likely to happen is the fact that his body gets tight, he pulls up sore one week, and you're right, he didn't play against a quality ruckman. He really didn't. I'd have concerns when he comes up against a quality ruckman, when he really gets tested, how he goes then. I just think it's a massive risk. It's a different story, as I've said through the preseason, different story if you're picking him as a mid-price guy, because eventually we feel like we're going to offload him, being a mid-pricer. But this is a guy we're paying and we're picking him to be a premium for the whole season. I'll be proven wrong, and I'm happy to do so because we love seeing Nick Nat out there. But I'll be shocked if he produced those sort of numbers for the whole season and didn't miss a game. So I feel if we pick him at some point, he could burn us. But look, I will have to wait and see. So that's about what I think with Nick Nat. Now, I'm just about to move on to the last page. Now, I did have one question from a fella that, for some reason, it didn't print out when I was doing them all. So I might have to dart back and read that one off the laptop. I'll finish these off and you'll probably see another edit on the end of this as I find that question. I don't know why the printer cuts them off sometimes. Again, Shorty is no magician with the computer. Moving on to Jeremy. Thanks for the question, mate. 2,335 with no Doty and Kelly on the field. Might trade Lambert/Hibbard for Danger and Bonner. Thoughts? Should I keep Hibbard/Savage/Lambert around? Not happy with Fife either. Keep the faith with Fife. No doubt about it, as I said with the last question. I would have, as I have said, keep the faith with all premiums for at least 2 weeks. Same can be said for Hibbard and Lambert. Lambert would have obviously hurt you on this occasion because he stunk it up again in Adelaide. That's disappointing, but definitely hold the faith with Hibbard. I mean, I know what you're trying to do there in terms of getting up to Danger, and Bonners look good, and you know, it might be a good move, but it's a couple of trades that you're burning a few trades real early. Clearly now I would pull the trigger on Lambert, because when I answered one of the questions on Lambert, that was before the game, now it's after the game, sort of thing, trying to fit it on the whole night. But so I think now he's played 2 games, he's had a couple of howlers, his price is going to go down. I think then we have to definitely pull the trigger on that one. Hibbard though, keep the faith. Dangerfield, you expect him to dominate, but he could come back slightly rusty. You just don't know. Not rusty, but you know what I mean. When you come back from an injury, you just never quite know. So I'd be trading Lambert, keeping the faith with Hibbard, and just seeing how Bonner goes again in his second week. And definitely keep the faith with Fife. He's a superstar. Aaron Taylor, not a bad start, Shorty. Thank you, mate. 2,410 for me. So off to a fairly solid start. Fairly solid's a bit of an understatement. That's a great score. Also have Fife and Bont, which wasn't too happy about either. However, pretty much nailed all my rookie selections other than Norton. The 3 mistakes I made was changing Bonner, Armitage, Parker, Bont. I think that's, so you must have brought in Armitage for Bonner and Bont for Parker, potentially. And Stephen Martin, you might have taken out for Ryder. I think that's what those dashes are referring to, which, when you look at that, is a little bit of painful reading. But look, keep the faith with Bont. And, yeah, look, I presume you've probably gone Ryder to Stephen Martin. All before the rolling lockouts, which actually hurt. Yeah, understandable, mate. We'll likely have to use a trade on Ryder, depending on the length of the injury. And we'll also monitor how Bonner goes this week. Another solid score, and we'll have to find a way to bring him in. Yeah, spot on, mate. Just assess, monitor exactly what we've been saying. Don't pull the trigger off one youngster off one game. Certainly wait and see how he goes. And I reckon, you know, now we know that Ryder's out for a little bit of time, certainly, as I'm sure you have, probably brought in Martin because you clearly rated him pre-season as well. So that's who I would definitely endorse. Esdub, good to see you had a bit better start than last year. I'm currently in the top 1% with a score of 2,425. Thanks, mate. No, appreciate it. It is nice to somewhat be in the mix. I know I had an absolute stinker last year to start it up, so it is nice to be within reach of some of the top scores. And yeah, I think fingers crossed can enter that top 10k after round 2. And yeah, nicely played, mate. You're flying, obviously. So well done. Really good score first up. Now, I cannot seem to find this other question that I was going to talk about because he was on the other page that I was trying to read and it must have just cut him off. So I'm going to waltz inside, write that one out, and I'll be back to answer one more question. I'll be back. Alrighty, I'm back. Shorty's back. That's Baller was the one I missed. So look, hopefully I've got around to everyone's question. If I have missed you, then certainly let me know because, you know, there's a lot of questions. I print off all the pages all at once, so, you know, I thought everything was getting on, but then I missed this fella, and all of a sudden I've lost a little bit of faith in the old printing process. But look, if I have missed you, then definitely let me know in the comments and I'll make sure that I absolutely get onto your questions next week. But he asks, why do you think Salem scored so poorly? Obviously only 12 touches, but 10 contested at 75% efficiency. Are there others taking his touches now or just a bad game? In comparison to Luke McDonald from North with nearly the same stats, 14, 12 contested and just 28% disposal efficiency, but still scored more. Yeah, it's a really good point, and I mean, firstly, maybe we take into a little bit of account that fall that he had when Selwood tunnelled him a little bit and he fell on his head. There was a report, you know, he was down as a neck injury and he's been named and everything, but, you know, was there slight concussion? I know he's had concussion injuries in the past, you know, even if it was just mild and there was something that shook him up a little bit potentially. But I don't know. Reading into the stats is difficult to decipher. I mean, it can depend on so much. There was a really good graphic I saw comparing two players' stats, and you know it's so much more complex than just a contested possession equals 3 points and an effective kick equals 4. You know, they are the rough guides, but it can depend when you do it and all sorts of different stuff. Time of the ground, you know, inside 50s adds a point and this and that, scaling this, scaling that. I don't profess to know the absolute ins and outs of how Champion Data do it, so I can't answer that one. I can only imagine that maybe he had some critical clangers, maybe he did, you know, a couple of things that cost him some serious points, maybe Luke McDonald. I don't know, mate, to be fair. I'm only guessing. I didn't even see that North Melbourne game. But in terms of Salem, did others take his points? I don't think so. I'm still umming and ahhing whether I keep him or not. Do I pull the trigger on Sicily now? Do I give him 2 weeks? I want to give him 2 weeks, but I feel as if, you know, I might need 2 trades in round 3. It's a real juggling act. But look, it's a really good question, mate. And it's probably worth a video in itself, just broadly comparing the way Champion Data do it and how it all gets narrowed down and decided, because it is really interesting. But look, thanks for your question, mate. I'm glad I got to it. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's all we have today. Plenty of questions, which is great. It has taken a little bit extra time to do them, so hopefully once I get it down pat, we can sort of, you know, be a little bit more concise with the answers and get a bit more of a feel for, you know, what sort of video length we're aiming for. But nonetheless, thanks for tuning in. So I should have this one up probably around early mid-morning Friday, which obviously we've missed the Thursday night game, but look, you know, there's me cat going nuts. But look, I did work all week. Sometimes it is going to be difficult, particularly you really need the Thursday night teams to come out to make a clear-cut call. So realistically, if there's a Thursday night game, the chance of the Q&A coming out on the Thursday, basically impossible. I got the weekend preview out just before the game, which is good. Hopefully that helped a few people. Hopefully you had the VC on Dustin Martin. But look, I'll certainly be back reviewing my side very soon. Hopefully you guys have a good week in SuperCoach. and hopefully I'm talking about a good week for myself in a few days' time. So have a good weekend, have a good Easter. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. What is Shorty's printer doing? There's another one been left out. Jack Burns, sorry mate. Sorry pal. I was going through doing a little footage off the top. Bit of a cheap man's table of contents, and I've gone, Jack Burn, where's his question? It's only, I don't know how it only prints the name, but not the question. Anyway, Barry to Holman, worth it. Probably again, I've said it all video, but you got to give these guys 2 weeks. I mean, at this point in time, I'd probably say yes. But Barry was okay. He had 22 touches, just didn't score too well. A few cheap touches, a few clangers by foot, hurt his score. But I think he's probably going to be a pretty solid player. I hope that he is named this week. I know he's on an extended bench. But I would probably say, yes, that's a likely trade. But certainly, again, it's a wait and see because it's just as likely Holman could come out and score 55 and Barry could score 82. You just don't know. So you don't want to have egg on your face by jumping too quickly at rookie scores from one round. So I would definitely hold fire on that one and just see how they go in round 2. So sorry I had to leave you right at the end there, mate. But yeah, I'll definitely have to do much more of a thorough check in these Q&As. I must say I rushed home, trying to get a bit done, get a weekend preview done, did the cricket talk on the way home, tried to bash that out, and then thought, maybe I can get a few questions done before the footy comes on, sit in the man cave, watch a bit of Adelaide, Richmond, so it was a slight rush with the Thursday game. So certainly in the future I'll have much more time to really go through it a bit more thoroughly and make sure I've got each and every one of you. So apologies for a few takes and a bit of a lengthier one, but hopefully you've stayed tuned for the most part. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.